Welcome back to the channel. Today, we have 3 disturbing true last day of school horror stories that will make you think twice about celebrating the end of the school year. But beware, because in the shadows of these celebrations, something sinister lurks. Our first story takes place in a seemingly normal classroom, but what happened on the last day of school will haunt you forever. Picture this: desks cluttered with forgotten assignments, the air thick with the smell of stale textbooks and anticipation. The last bell of the year is about to ring, a symphony of liberation for students eager to escape the confines of their classrooms. But in Mrs. Harlow's 10th grade English class, a different kind of energy hangs in the air. Mrs. Harlow's classroom had a reputation, whispered among students in hushed tones as they hurried down the hallways. They said it was haunted, plagued by the ghost of a former student who met an untimely end within those very walls. Some dismissed it as childish superstition, the product of overactive imaginations fueled by late-night cram sessions and scary stories whispered at sleepovers. But others, those who claimed to have seen her fleeting shadow in the reflection of the window or heard the chilling whisper of her voice during a particularly quiet study hall, knew the truth. The air grew heavy as the clock ticked closer to the final bell, each tick a hammer blow against the silence of the room. Students fidgeted in their seats, their eyes darting nervously towards the old grandfather clock that hung ominously on the wall above the chalkboard, its pendulum swinging back and forth like a hypnotist's metronome. Even Mrs. Harlow, usually a beacon of calm and collected authority, seemed ill at ease. Her gaze darted around the room, lingering on the empty desk in the back corner, the one they all knew belonged to the ghost. As the final bell of the year echoed through the hallways, a collective sigh of relief swept through the classroom. Students scrambled out of their seats, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere that had settled over them. But just as the last student reached the door, a piercing scream shattered the momentary peace. It was Sarah, a shy girl who always sat in the front row, her face pale and her eyes wide with terror. She stood frozen, her gaze fixed on something behind the teacher's desk. The other students turned to see what had caused such a blood-curdling scream, their hearts pounding in their chests. There, hovering above the teacher's desk, was a translucent figure of a young girl. Her long black hair cascaded down her back like a silken waterfall, obscuring her face from view. Her eyes, 2 glowing embers in the dimly lit classroom, seemed to burn with a cold fire, searing into the souls of those unfortunate enough to meet her gaze. Panic erupted in the classroom. Students screamed and pushed their way towards the door, desperate to escape the horrifying apparition. But the ghost moved with unnatural speed, gliding across the room and blocking their path. The students were trapped, their worst nightmares come to life before their very eyes. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the ghost vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence and the faint scent of decaying flowers. The students and Mrs. Harlow were never the same. Some refused to speak of what they had seen, their minds repressing the horrifying memory. Others couldn't escape the haunting image of the ghost girl, her glowing eyes forever burned into their minds. The classroom remained locked for years, a chilling reminder of the dark secret that haunted its walls. Our second story takes us to a bustling high school on a day just like any other, except it wasn't. It was the last day of school, and the air crackled with anticipation for the summer break ahead. But for one student, this day would mark a terrifying descent into the unknown. His name was Jason, a popular senior star athlete and all-around good guy. He was last seen heading to his locker after his final class, a mischievous grin on his face as he chatted with friends, excited about the summer adventures that awaited. The hallways buzzed with the excited chatter of students eager to break free from the shackles of academia, their backpacks slung over their shoulders as they made their way towards the double doors that promised freedom. But as the minutes turned into hours, and the setting sun cast long shadows across the empty hallways, a chilling realization washed over everyone. Jason was missing. At first, his friends and family dismissed his absence, assuming he'd gone to celebrate with friends, perhaps gotten caught up in the excitement of the day. But as night fell and Jason still hadn't returned home, worry morphed into panic. Frantic calls were made, search parties were organized, flyers with his smiling face plastered on every available surface. But Jason had vanished, swallowed whole by the summer air. The police launched an investigation, but despite their best efforts, they found no trace of him. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the mystery surrounding Jason's disappearance deepened. Rumors swirled around the school and the small town it called home. Some whispered about foul play, suggesting a jealous rival or a secret enemy had taken their resentment too far. Others clung to more outlandish theories, whispering about government conspiracies, alien abductions, and even a portal to another dimension hidden somewhere within the school's old, dusty library. But the truth, whatever it may be, remained elusive, shrouded in a veil of mystery that seemed impossible to penetrate. Then, just when hope began to dwindle, a glimmer of something emerged from the darkness. A janitor cleaning out lockers at the end of summer stumbled upon a chilling discovery: Jason's backpack, untouched, exactly where he'd last left it. Inside, alongside his textbooks and notebooks, lay his phone. Its battery long dead, it held no answers, only more questions. The discovery sent a chill down the spines of everyone involved. Jason's disappearance became a chilling local legend, a cautionary tale whispered among students, a reminder that even in the brightest of times, darkness can lurk around every corner. Our final story takes place on the last day of school, a day typically filled with relief and anticipation. But for a group of students in Mr. Davis's advanced chemistry class, this day would become a terrifying fight for survival. The air crackled with a nervous energy as they filed into the classroom, the weight of the impending final exam heavy on their minds. Mr. Davis, known for his unconventional teaching methods and his unsettlingly intense gaze, had promised them a test like no other. As the students settled into their seats, a palpable tension filled the air. The only sounds were the frantic scratching of pens against paper and the occasional muffled cough. Mr. Davis, a gaunt figure with piercing blue eyes, paced the front of the room, his presence both intimidating and strangely captivating. He handed out the exam papers, each page filled with complex equations and mind-boggling problems. The students, their palms sweating and their hearts pounding, stared at the exam papers as if they were ancient scrolls inscribed with cryptic prophecies. As they delved deeper into the exam, a sense of unease settled over the room. The questions took on a sinister tone, their complexity bordering on the surreal. Hypothetical experiments involving unknown substances and potentially catastrophic outcomes replaced the standard formulas and calculations. Whispers of confusion and fear rippled through the classroom, but Mr. Davis remained unfazed, his unwavering gaze fixed on his students. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and died, plunging the classroom into darkness. A collective gasp echoed through the room as students fumbled for their phones, their beams of light cutting through the oppressive darkness. When their eyes adjusted to the dim light, they were greeted by a sight that sent chills down their spines. Mr. Davis was gone, vanished into thin air, as if he had never existed. Panic surged through the classroom as the students scrambled for the door, only to find it locked from the outside. They were trapped, their worst nightmares becoming a terrifying reality. As the minutes ticked by, the air grew thick with fear and the stench of something acrid and chemical. The once familiar classroom transformed into a prison, its walls closing in on them, each tick of the clock a hammer blow against their dwindling hope. Then, a blood-curdling scream pierced the darkness, followed by another and another, until the air was filled with the terrified cries of the trapped students. They huddled together, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of their phones, their eyes wide with terror as they searched the darkness for the source of the screams. But the darkness held its secrets close, its silence broken only by the sound of their own ragged breathing and the frantic beating of their hearts. One by one the screams ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow more terrifying than the chaos that had preceded it. The darkness, once an abstract concept, became a tangible entity, a suffocating presence that pressed in on them from all sides. They were trapped in a nightmare, a twisted experiment orchestrated by a madman, their final exam, a terrifying test of their will to survive. The hours dragged on, each one an eternity in their personal abyss. The air grew heavy, the chemical odor intensifying, suffocating them, their minds playing tricks on them as the darkness whispered its secrets. When the authorities finally arrived, alerted by the frantic calls from worried parents, they found the classroom empty, the students gone, vanished without a trace. The only evidence of the terrifying ordeal was a single exam paper lying on the floor, its surface covered in strange symbols and cryptic equations. The mystery of the missing students and the vanished teacher remained unsolved, a haunting reminder that some secrets are best left buried. The final exam had become their final nightmare. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more chilling tales. Remember, sometimes the end of the school year is just the beginning of the horror.